Well, Katrien, thanks for that exceptional introduction. It really moves me and touches, I think, all of us. I have a few introductory remarks. Indeed, it is about NATO. When you say General Secretary, it sounds a bit communist. Because I was raised with the General Secretaries of the Communist Party in the Soviet Union, but luckily those days are far behind us. So again, thank you for welcoming me to Tallinn University. I arrived in Estonia yesterday. I've had the pleasure of meeting with the President and the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister, and I've here with me Jure Luik, who's famous in Estonia, and we are very happy to have him now in Brussels as your ambassador, permanent representative. But also I visited Tapa Army Base, which was really very special to be there and to speak with the British troops there and the French, and there's even somebody from Iceland, quite a number of the US, and of course many from your country who are there as soldiers working to keep Estonia safe. But I must say this meeting was the one I really looked forward to meet you. For me it's always a great occasion to meet with students, to listen to you, to the younger generation, and I started on the 1st of October, so I'm very experienced Secretary General of NATO. I'm here now in my 4th week. I know everything. But I can tell you, Estonia is the 5th country I'm visiting. But you are the first students I'm speaking with, and I really look forward to this event. Maybe just as a way of introduction, and then I go into your questions, I could mention a few things which are now basically playing out in Brussels, in NATO, and all over the 1 billion people who live within the NATO territory, from Canada and the US up to Estonia and everything in between. And of course, then you are talking about the security situation. I think it goes without saying that we live in dangerous times. That's also part of the answer. Are we safe? The times are dangerous. There is a war, as you know, raging in the heart of Europe. We see that authoritarian regimes are more and more aligned, including China, North Korea, of course Iran and Russia. And we face many other threats, including terrorism and cyber attacks. But there is also reassuring news to your question. NATO is stronger than ever. And we are continuously, on a day-by-day basis, keeping our 1 billion people safe. And the good thing, of course, in NATO is that no one country has to tackle that problem alone. And Estonia is therefore, as your grandmother, it was your grandmother you mentioned? Your mother, you're so young. Sorry, I thought it was your grandmother. Your mother was mentioning. Estonia is not alone. It can count on 31 other allies and friends around the NATO table, and they can count on you. And that is the strength, I think, of the alliance, that we are all in it, all for one, one for all. So let me focus on 3 points quickly at the start of our discussion. First, on keeping up our defenses, and how do we build up our defenses. We need more forces, we need higher readiness, we need greater capabilities. Collective defense is the core of NATO, it's the basic promise, but we have to deliver on that promise. You are hosting one of 8 multinational battle groups along the eastern flank of the alliance. And our industries are working hard at this moment to produce what we need for defense, including tanks, jets, ammunition, and more. But I think that we all agree that history has taught us that the best way to prevent war and to deter the Vladimir Vladimirovich Putins of this world is by remaining strong and ready. But then we also know that defense comes at a cost, so we have to invest in our security. And here, of course, Estonia is doing a fantastic job. You are above 3%, and even when you add up all the numbers, you might even end up right somewhat higher than 3%, maybe even over 4% a couple of years. So your defense spending as a percentage of GDP is commendable. And you intend to do this also in the coming years. So you're clearly staying above the 3%, but doing some extra projects which will bring you even a bit up higher. And therefore you are leading by example. There are some others, like Poland is also doing a lot. and other allies, but for most of us it is we are happy to stick with the 2%, and of course we have to bring up the base level of 2%. The good news is that at the moment all over NATO, if you would take out the US for 1 second and you would take all the other NATO spending, then we are on 2% NATO-wide. But again, it's not enough, and there are still 9 allies who are below 2%. My second point is Ukraine. NATO stands with Ukraine. The difficult winter ahead will be quite a struggle for them. So winterization is an issue. We know that, of course, their electricity capacity to generate electricity has been hard hit. But of course, we have to sustain them for the long term. You are among the top contributors to Ukraine. You have provided over 500 million, so €500 million in military aid since 2022. You have a commitment for the years to come, and when you look at the per capita base, you are really in the top. Of course, when you look at real numbers, it is US number 1, Germany number 2, but of course these economies are far bigger than yours. But when you look at a per capita base, then Estonia is really in the top. And I don't think this is an act of charity. Yes, of course, it's our value, so we don't want another country to be invaded, and we are far past the times of colonialization. So yes, of course, there is an element of values and why we do this, but it is not charity. It is also an investment in our collective security. And that, I think, is also why NATO is supporting Ukraine, why you are supporting Ukraine as part of NATO, including with the financial pledge, you know, the 40 billion, which has to be there. We are setting up in Wiesbaden this command where we basically bring together the training, the weapon supplies, and all these programs to make sure that Ukraine is sustained. And of course, there is the NATO membership. We want them in. The question is when, and we have said in Washington it is an irreversible path towards NATO membership. And basically, with all these activities, including the bilateral security arrangements between many allies and Ukraine, we have built a bridge towards membership. But again, there is still the sensitive question of the timing. Then my third point is about partnerships. What we see now, look at the Republic of Korea being confronted with North Korea sending soldiers potentially to Ukraine. At least we now know more or less that they are in Russia. So the question is whether they also will go to Ukraine. But there is a lot of evidence now that at least they are on Russian soil. And that is evidence of the fact that the Euro-Atlantic, where we live, and the Indo-Pacific are not two different realms. They are really connected. We had New Zealand, together with the Australian, Japanese and South Korea, but also the New Zealand Defence Minister, Judith, was Thursday in a NATO Defence Ministers meeting. She is the Defence Minister of New Zealand. You cannot travel from farther away to Brussels. I mean, New Zealand, it really is 24 hours. It's even 3 hours flight out of Australia. But she was there. And why? Because she said, for me, this cooperation with NATO is vital for our security in New Zealand. So this tells you something. Again, with what is now happening with the North Koreans, is clear evidence of the need and the fact that China is ramping up its defense industry production is reason why we need to combine these theaters. And as one of the allies said in that meeting, it's one theater. It's not 2 or 3, it's one theater. And probably he was right. So we are deepening that cooperation, also very practical on defense production, on innovation, on sharing information, and it helps. I was able on Monday morning to get on the phone, call President Yoon of the Republic of Korea and discuss with him the situation now of North Koreans moving towards Russia and potentially even Ukraine. And why is that? Because, and for him, it means that he has to schedule that call, make it possible. That could easily take you 1 or 2 weeks. It was there done in 24 hours. Why? Because we are partners. And why? Because his security is connected to our security. So this is evidence that NATO, yes, 32 countries. I'm not saying that we will enlarge NATO now, the North Atlantic with the Indo-Pacific, but that close cooperation is really important. And of course also with Europe. I mean, our essential and unique partner, I think, is the official language. And we are all happy that the European Union is there, but also that we work with them very closely. So increasingly aligned. You see that the North Koreans, others, they challenge our security. The fact that the Chinese, through sanction circumvention, through delivering dual-use goods into Russia, helping Russia against Ukraine in the war effort, is all evidence. And of course, Russia is paying a price for this. They are forced to share their innovative technologies with Iran, with North Korea, with China. So there's a to and from traffic of knowledge and weaponry, etc. But Russia is paying a price for this, but of course the others are also. And we pay a price because the world becomes more dangerous. So we need our friends, near and far, near in NATO, but also far away in the Pacific. The EU close by, but still crucial that we build a bridge. Your Kaja Kallas, I can say, I'm not sure for whom you voted, but at least she is, hopefully, it feels a bit as your Kaja Kallas, is now becoming the new High Rep and Vice President of the European Commission. We have Kubilius from Lithuania, who will be the new Defense Commissioner. Of course, we have Ursula von der Leyen, who is former Defense Minister of Germany, as President of the European Commission. And we have Antonio Costa, who is chairing the European Council. He is from far away, Portugal, but he is very staunch Atlanticist. So I'm very happy that he is there. And if with those four, and with the experience we have at NATO with me and others in navigating that relationship with the EU, if we cannot keep this going, then we should not be in the business of diplomacy and politics at all. So this is also a real opportunity we have the coming month to get that show on the road. I'll stop talking. I want to listen to you and try to answer some of your questions or reflect on your thoughts. But I think this was an excellent introduction, so I expect your applause, and then we go into the discussion. Thank you.